Did they do well? Come on, is that proof of concept? Structure. Oh, on that one actually, if you don't mind. Could you just, thank you. Structure, creativity and an audience, 3 chords, you can do it. This is not orchestral music, I agree. But to get a simple idea and to jam together, it doesn't take too much. And I think that's all we have. And we have a little time to do a little more academic work now. So that was the fun. Now it's down to the serious points. Part 2, leadership, creative leadership unplugged. Because in anything in sort of your world, it isn't leading drones, is it? You're leading intelligent people, which requires a different kind of leadership than perhaps working in local government. That doesn't really condemn local government, I have to say, too much. But I mean, you're trying to get people who've got brains to work, and that requires a special kind of leadership. It is the sort of leadership that I suppose I experienced working in a pharmaceutical firm, of leading people that wanted to do what they wanted to do, not what you wanted them to do. That, of course, is slightly different than just control and command. You mentioned stop, or was it Steve? It's a new title, Stop in the Name of Leadership. Actually, the trouble with all management business processes is someone has to come and corral their time and say, stop, let's have a look at this. And people say, no, we don't want to stop, we want to carry on, wasting all that red time or blue time, whichever it is. The green thing, well, that's not important, is it? So actually, the most difficult thing is stopping. And I went to see Tom Peters a little while ago, who likes my book, by the way, along with Prince, and it's available tonight for money. And he said that stopping is really hard, because the real easy thing in rock music is want to be starting something, isn't it? People love starting things at work. What they don't like doing is stopping things that have no function, but they've been doing them for years anyway. And it's all that sort of red or whichever. What colour is the bad stuff? Red. It's the red work. That's why it's red. So stopping is much harder than starting. Unfortunately, Michael Jackson wouldn't have had a hit with "Wanna Be Stopping Something," is the trouble with that idea. So what is leadership? We'll start with the definition, although it's nearly over. I thought of this on the toilet, and someone thought it was quite good, so I thought I'd repeat it. It wasn't one of the Chinese toilets, however. Leadership is different than management. Management is about perfecting what you already do and systematising, making it efficient. Leadership is about trying new stuff and getting people comfortable with dropping old stuff. Trying new stuff's easy enough, but dropping old stuff's really hard, isn't it, at work, because you get used to it. It's a habit. And we're all creatures of habit at some level or other. So you can look at companies and rock musicians and business and things like that, where they actually say, no, let's not keep changing. Let's look at having a culture that's reliable and keeps going in the same time. And this is all fine until the market wants something else. So there's nothing wrong with having your strong culture that hangs on to its core values and just keeps repeating itself. In the music business, examples of strong cultures include people like Oasis, U2 and the Rolling Stones. As I said before, U2 have probably written about 3 songs, haven't they? Anyone like U2 before I? Not now. They've written 3 songs and they've refashioned them for a different market, which is absolutely great because their net present value in financial terms is huge. Bono's probably worth more than most of Africa, I would have thought. Allegedly, he's trying to sort that piece out, of course. But Bono's worth a lot of money. So that works until people get bored with U2. So Oasis have written maybe 2 songs, perhaps. And allegedly they are a copy of the Beatles. I think they're probably more a copy of the Rolling Stones in technical terms. The Rolling Stones haven't done reggae or jazz fusion, generally speaking. They did do Angie, didn't they? Do we want to try that? Not now, we haven't got time. Have we got time? No. Just for decency, we'll leave Angie out. So the same is true in business. Who loves Ryanair? Nobody. Who hates Ryanair? Yeah. Why do you hate Ryanair? Yeah, see how far they can abuse their customers. Any more hate bit about Ryanair? It's a love and hate thing, Ryanair.
They are cheap.
So you like them? You don't love them, but they're cheap. Okay, they're cheap as chips, but they abuse their customers. Yeah. Anything else? You don't travel very far, you lot, do you? Certainly not on Ryanair, obviously. If I ask this question, usually in a group this big, there's quite a lot of people that love Ryanair, and they say things like, "Look, it's a penny." It's not anymore, actually, is it?
Well, I've just been right now and I thought it was brilliant, to be honest, because I got both ways, out there and back, extra leg room.
Uh-huh.
Without paying any extra.
Indeed. The £5, yeah, which everyone's in the priority queue, aren't they? So there's no point in having the priority queuing. That's good. Okay. So Ryanair. Hmm? Well, they're from Ireland. Michael O'Leary used to drive a taxi because he got fed up with the third lane being empty and all the other ones being full up in the morning. So he said, "Feck this for a game of soldiers. I'll buy a taxi and just use the third lane." That's what he does. He says he's a bad accountant and he just sees bad practice. He's a great lean Sigma man. He said, if something's wrong, we don't use it, we do something different. That's what he does. Naturally, actually, he's not he's not a great zealot for sort of doing process mapping, really. But people love Ryanair and they also hate them in the same breath. You go to Ireland, the taxi driver's going, penny, it's very expensive. He's making a rip-off on the hotels and stuff. They always think that it's expensive. And I try to say to them, but where could you go for a penny anywhere else? I think Ryanair is a brilliant example of a company that's actually got a very clear low-cost, no-cost strategy. It says it's as cheap as chips, and if you don't like it, you can go somewhere. Yeah, you probably. Well, he probably doesn't want you. No, and it's no longer as cheap as it was. Actually, it's now quite because. Well, and his vulnerability is the price of petrol and stuff, isn't it? But it says it does what it says on the tin. It says on the thing, low cost, you get nothing. You're not charged for the loo yet. That was just a little scam he put out. But that's actually the trouble with Ryanair. He has this strong culture, no cost or low cost. He can't change that because everyone knows what Ryanair stands for. I've had people in rooms like this. They say, "I hate Ryanair," and then you go, "Why?" I said, "I don't know, I've never been on them." No, seriously. So that's the hallmark of a great brand. You know what it stands for, you never actually experienced it. Isn't that clever, actually, in a way? So, I think Ryanair is good from the point of view of it's cheap as chips. He doesn't have movable seats. Why does he not have movable seats? The answer is because the biggest cause of downtime in an aircraft is when it's on the ground having the seat fixed. So if you want low-cost airlines, you don't have any seats that move because that's where all your cost has gone. He's actually done that Sigma thing or the lean thing by taking out all the things that waste his time. He can't afford it. And so Sony and IKEA are the same. They have strong cultures, but the trouble with a strong culture is when the market changes, they miss the trick. Sony, I think, had 4 innovations per day in 1992. They were so kind of consumed with they were being right that they thought that digital music wouldn't take off because they had a record company. So, of course, that's the trouble with this stuff. If you suddenly think you rule the planet, you may be wrong when things change. Ryanair are particularly vulnerable to the price of fuel and so on. So that's great, but you can only do that if you've got a stable market. What you need to have is this flexible firm, this learning organisation, adaptive culture, all these words that are thrown around the thing. They all mean the damn same thing. Being able to break away from the recipe that you have and take your audience with you, like Madonna, like David Bowie, and those people that don't have one hit. Change what you do and keep your audience and get new ones, if you're really smart. Examples of those include Dear Madonna, Mr. Bowie. Any Radiohead fans in the room here? I have to just check that. Are you a religious Radiohead fan? Am I going to upset you by saying anything bad? Just a normal one. What's that? Radiohead did something very interesting. They had a big album, even if you're not a Radiohead fan. What was Radiohead's big album that EMI said, this is records are back. No, the one before. The one that sold millions of copies. OK Computer was this album they had, and it was a bit like Dark Side of the Moon with Pink Floyd. And Pink Floyd said, stuff the music business, we're going to write another album that's about Syd Barrett, and it's got 10-minute songs, and it'll be a bit ponderous. Whereas, of course, the record company wants to make Dark Side of the Moon again. What did Radiohead do after OK Computer? Kid A, which is if I'm not going to offend you, it's a series of ponderous, self-reflective, self-absorbed songs that nobody wants to listen to. There's some good points in it as well. It was cheap. And EMI probably thought, oh my God, how can we control these people? So that's the trouble with being adaptive. Sometimes you lose your audience. But frankly, Prince, the Beatles, Madonna, and that, they've managed to keep their audience and get new ones. That's what you want to do in business. Same thing across here. Toyota, whether you love them or hate them, have, of course, managed to have millions of models rather than they're all got to be black. And they mostly work, apart from the brake problem, don't they? Which Ford were very pleased about. Nokia, where did Nokia start? What were Nokia doing years ago before they started making phones? Before that? Wood pulp. Why? A lot of trees in Finland or Sweden or whatever. Yeah, they were doing toilet roll. One of the things they made was toilet roll. So from toilet rolls to telephone, the only link is they start with a T. So that's the ultimate adaptive organisation. I'd suggest to you, like Steve was saying in China, if you want to play the game, you have to go with the flow and sort of do this and be prepared to improvise a little bit whilst retaining enough structure to hold your audience. That's all there is. Could we use a musical example to see how that works? What do you think? What do you think's coming next? Yeah, I think we could. But before that, let's look at a business example. So we'll look at business, how an organisation that is adaptive manages it. And Tim Smith is the chief executive of the Eden Project, and I interviewed him a while ago for the Institute of Directors. And one thing you won't know about Tim Smith, as well as running the Eden Project and saying, we keep shaking stuff around because, otherwise you just get stale. The other thing he did before he did the Eden Project was he wrote songs for Barry Manilow, and he produced Motorhead. And when people talk about diversity, that's about all there is, They both start with an M, but that's where it ends. So this is Tim Smith.
So before the Eden Project, I understand that you had a career in the music business. How has that career helped you run this business?
It was one day I was asked to do an advertisement for a product. They wanted something classical. And I looked at the opening bars of Tchaikovsky's Piano Concerto in B-flat minor, bum, 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 bum. It's really famous. And I got the computer up and I was putting in the first notes of the whole thing to get the first thing. And I think I'm right in saying there's like 47, 48 instruments playing right at the start. But I was up to like instrument 46 and it was sounding like the most terrible noise. It was just, I must have programmed it wrong, I thought. But anyway, I'll do the last two things. And the last two things went in and suddenly, wallop, I was like plastered against the back of the room and it was perfect. And I thought I understood for the first time in my life what genius was. Actually genius. This person had conceived in their head of the different sonics that were required to create that wall of sound. You can't get it on a piano, you can't do it on a guitar. You need all that dissonance and that big thing. And that became for me a tremendous metaphor about building teams. And that's how I see it. I'm aware that you need the dissonance, you need the order, it's all the talents. And it's a terrible cliche. People always talk about you need all the talents. But so often people hire people like them or they get rid of people who are a bit edgy. And actually you need all of that ferment to create a sense of rigor, to create a sense of challenge, and also great comfort when everybody suddenly goes, yes.
I think at the end of a film with Tim Smith, you have to go, wow! Perhaps. I don't know. What do you think, Mark? Yeah. By the way, I met Mark many years ago at the Business Link and then through the MBA. And we both know, Mark, that an MBA stands for not more bloody analysis sometimes, but much bigger amps, doesn't it? Okay. So, there's Tim Smith. Now we cross from the case example of business, of course, back to my passion, rock and roll.